Hi, my name is Jabran Koka. I'm a board certified behavior analyst, and in this video, I'm going to be talking to you about errorless teaching. Errorless teaching is an approach where the teacher will minimize the possibility of incorrect responses from their student. They'll do this by providing prompts or clues which indicate the correct response. Over time, these prompts are reduced, which ultimately means that the student can respond independently following a question or instruction from their teacher. The types of prompts that can be provided can vary depending on the student and depending on the teaching situation, but they can range from physical prompts, where the teacher is guiding the student's responses physically, to visual prompts such as modeling the correct response. For example, if a student has been asked to circle the correct answer to a maths question, a visual prompt could be that the font for the correct answer is slightly larger than the other answers. Alternatively, if a student is learning to zip up their coat, the adult can hold onto the child's hands while guiding them through pulling up their zip. The goal of errorless teaching is to maintain a high level of motivation for a student when they're learning a new skill. The term errorless teaching is often used in the context of discrete trial training, which is a teaching method used in Applied Behaviour Analysis, or ABA. However, the concept of errorless teaching is not specific to ABA. For example, a similar concept is the idea of scaffolding. This is the teaching method developed by the cognitive psychologist Jerome Bruner that involves providing successive levels of support to help students reach an understanding of concepts or skills that they would not be able to achieve on their own. It's a strategy often used in educational contexts, which takes inspiration from the idea of a scaffold in construction, or a temporary support that is removed when it is no longer needed. Bruner built upon the social development theories of Russian psychologist Lev Vygotsky. Vygotsky created this concept called the Zone of Proximal Development, or ZPD. It's basically the gap between what a student can do on their own and what they can do when someone helps them. Vygotsky believed that the best way to teach is to aim for this gap, helping the student learn new skills that they can eventually use by themselves. Bruner then extended this concept with his theory of scaffolding, which refers to the process through which adults or more skilled peers help a learner accomplish a task within their ZPD by providing support and guidance, then gradually removing that support as the learner becomes more capable. Similarly, errorless teaching aims to begin by providing a high level of support to the student and then slowly fading that support or prompts away until the student is capable of completing the task independently. As mentioned earlier, the errorless teaching process is often used in the context of discrete trial training, or DTT. This is a method of teaching which will often involve the use of flashcards containing a mixture of skills. The majority of these skills are known to the student, and a few of these are unknown teaching targets. For example, you could have several flashcards with pictures of animals that a child is able to label. These are the known skills, and a couple of flashcards of animals that the child doesn't currently know the names of, for example, dog and cat. Step 1. When teaching a student to label the new animals, you would start by asking the student a question. This is called the discriminative stimulus, or SD. You would then fully prompt the correct answer, for example by saying cat or say cat. Assuming that the student is able to echo your verbal response, they should also say the word cat. In this step, it is important that you have used a prompt that will reliably evoke the correct responses from the student. For example, if the student doesn't consistently echo words when asked, but are able to read the word out loud when shown the written word, then a written prompt could be used alongside the vocal prompt rather than a vocal prompt by itself. When a prompt reliably results in the desired behavior, that prompt can be described as having stimulus control over that behavior. In the above example, where the student is unable to echo vocalizations but is able to read a word out loud, the written word has stimulus control over the student's speaking behavior, but the vocal prompt alone does not have stimulus control. When the student responds correctly following your prompt, they should be encouraged and praised for their correct response. For some students, it may be that they aren't really motivated by praise alone, and so additional items or activities could be used alongside this praise as an encouragement and affirmation of their correct response. This addition of stimuli, such as vocal praise or access to preferred items, is called positive reinforcement, and it increases the likelihood of a student repeating that correct response when presented with the SD. Step 2. Step 2 is called the stimulus control transfer, or the transfer trial. This is the process of fading away the prompt that was used during step 1 so that the student can respond correctly when just presented with the original question. In this way, the stimulus control goes from the prompt that you are using to the presentation of the question alone. This process occurs all the time when learning new skills. For example, when learning to drive, your driving instructor may have to initially talk you through the process of doing a right turn. However, as you practice, the driving instructor can fade away these prompts so that your behavior of checking your mirrors, indicating, changing gears, and turning the steering wheel come under the control of your motivation to turn right, rather than the instructor's prompts. If step 2 is not carried out correctly, or carried out at all, and the prompt that was given in step 1 is not faded away, the student may become over-reliant on these prompts, meaning they may not ever be able to respond independently in that situation. It is advisable to run the transfer trial within a few seconds of finishing step 1. This is because the quicker you run the transfer trial, the more likely the student is to remember the prompt you gave them in step 1 without additional prompts. When the student responds independently, it is important to give them a much higher level of positive reinforcement when compared to the reinforcement given in step 1. This is to encourage higher levels of independence. Step 3. After you have completed the transfer trial, it is time to present the student with a distractor. You do this by asking the student a question from their list of known cards. To understand the need for this step, we need to first understand the role of working memory and long-term memory. Working memory temporarily holds and manipulates information such as the prompts and the child's responses. As we gradually reduce the prompts and reinforce the correct behavior, this information begins to move from working memory to long-term memory, making the behavior more automatic. Running a stimulus control transfer trial can facilitate this transition. The distractor trial aims to clear the child's working memory of the prompts that were provided in reference to the target question and replace this memory with responses to a known skill. Step 4. Finally, this step is called the test trial. In this step, you present the original SD or question again for the target that you are trying to teach the child. However, you do not prompt the child with the correct response in the same way that you would have done in step 2 or the transfer trial. When the student responds correctly, the teacher should provide the highest level of praise and positive reinforcement. This will further encourage the student's independent responses. The whole process may sound something like this. What's this? Cat.
Cat.
Excellent. What's this?
Cat.
That was really good. Let me give you a big high five. What does a horse say?
Neigh.
What's this?
Cat.
Beautiful. That was amazing work. Let's celebrate with some music. Occasionally, you may come across a difficulty with fading away your prompts. This may happen if you go from a full prompt, for example, saying the whole word cat, to no prompt at all. This would be a little bit like your driving instructor going from fully guiding you through taking that right turn to not saying anything at all immediately in the next practice attempt. If the prompt is removed too quickly, then this may result in many errors and the loss of motivation. To remedy this, it is advisable that when you're running the transfer trial for the first time, to fade away your prompts slowly. This could be from saying the whole word cat to just saying the sound of the first letter, k. Over 2 or 3 practices, this prompt can be faded further and further until the student is able to respond completely independently. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you found the information helpful, please be sure to like and subscribe so you know when we upload future training videos.